Welcome to Morning Devotion with Ken Gurley. Devotions designed to inspire you on your daily walk with God. Here's your host, Ken Gurley.
Good Tuesday morning to everybody. Welcome, MD family. Saw some new names flying by as we were waiting for the intro to get started. Welcome this morning. First day of February, 1 month down in 2022. Only 11 to go. Yeah. Oh my. Here we go. But we're hanging in there together, doing this together. So Monica, Cora, good to see each and every one of you. JD, Sue, happy that you are a part of this. And you make this a part of your day. And the host of people who are not able to be with us live when we do this at 7 a.m. Central, Monday to Friday, but join in later and let us know. And then each of you that actually go back, encourage others throughout the day that leave comments. Thank you. This is a place you are safe. That's it. You're secure. You can come and be a part of this. And this morning, divine magnetism. What attracts God? I'm going to just tell you. We've done a lot of these devotions, folks. But this morning's devotion, it's a red letter devotion. Oh my. I got so fired up preparing this morning, and I shouted around the den and walked around claiming the promises of God. And it's okay. While we get into this, if you decide to do a little bit of that, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So you know the drill. YouTubers, subscribe, share this with others. Follow the page, Facebookers, and thank you for being a part of this. And I am hearing from some Instagram folks that you're a part of this. So thank you for joining us. As crazy as it sounds, in the last 30 days, can I give you a number? Nearly 250,000 different people reached with this morning devotion. Directly reached. That's what the metrics told me this morning when I got it. Is that incredible? Give yourself a hand. Sherry, Shalene, CL. Hey, Brother Moore, good to see you. Don, good to see you. Give yourself a hand for that. That's you. You make that possible through sharing and involving others. I got up this morning. Maybe you can tell. I got up this morning earlier than normal. And there was a thought. It was just like a pebble in an old hubcap just going around and around. There was a thought in my brain I just couldn't shake. And here it was. What gets God's attention? What attracts him into our lives and our worlds? If you've ever been to a metal scrap yard, you've seen it. Giant magnets just picking up large metal objects, even things just as large as cars. The magnetism, that power on display. In that analogy, picture the attraction between the metal and the magnet. It's invisible, yet oh so very real. And in a sense, there is something that draws God into our lives, into our world. Now, before I go bouncing off into scripture to show you this, I just got to stop. I want you to ponder this. I want you to prayerfully consider this. There are 3 things that I just sat down this morning and started scribbling. 3 things that I can't get away from. I've seen this in my own life. I've experienced it. I've seen this in the lives of others. 3 things that draw God into a situation. Divine magnetism. What attracts God? Oh, I just love this. I love this thought. Sheila, Mario, Winnie, Janelle, I love this thought. By the way, before I just dive off, because once I dive, we're going. A word about the Holy Land trip. If you've signed up for the trip, you should have got an email last night from JamesL.Bailey. He's starting to pull the deposits necessary to nail down trips and hotels and all this stuff. It's not too late to join us, 8 or 9 months away. You can join us. His email address is over in the description, JamesL.Bailey. And shout out to James. Thank you, James. Thank you, James, for pulling all of this together. It wouldn't happen without you. Okay. What gets God's attention? In the wee hours of the morning, I mean, like at around 2 this morning, I started writing these things down. And then I narrowed it down, and I got my list down to three things that I want to talk about that just attract God's attention. And each of these 3 qualities can be found in the Bible, and all are made evident by a certain group of people in the Bible. You know, the Bible teaches us of God's compassion, how he's drawn to groups of people. 2 that stand out, James 1:27, he said, you want pure religion? You want to get old-time religion? James 1:27, that old-time religion that's pure and faultless, looks after orphans and widows in their distress, and keeps oneself from being polluted by the world. That's religion in its basic form, is to care for orphans and widows and live holy lives. Interesting how we can make it a lot more complicated than that, can't we? Yeah, but that's it. God has a special place in his heart for those who are defenseless. And this was a very verse that came to my mind when I noted the 3 things that I'd written down, that all 3 were illustrated by widows. Widows are mentioned 11 times in the Bible. And I want to share 3 of the instances where widows are mentioned, because each of the qualities mentioned here gets God's attention and draws him like a magnet into a situation. And then not only draws him, but prompts his action in his abundance. Now, the first is an easy one. You've guessed it already. First, it's faith. Yes, faith draws God's attention. Wherever you find faith, you're going to find God. That's it. Because faith is just a magnet. It's a divine magnet. It pulls God into a situation. I'm going to tell you 3 stories in Luke to illustrate these 3 things. Luke 18, there's a story of a widow that kept appealing to a judge. Judge later said, I don't fear God, I don't fear man, but this widow, she will not leave me alone with her request. And so he finally said, I'm just going to give her what she's asking for. Jesus noted the persistence of the widow. She cried out to that unjust judge. Jesus asked, won't God bring justice to those who cry to him day and night? Will he postpone his assistance in the face of such persistence? And at first blush, you may read that and say, oh, it's persistence in prayer that draws God. Yes, but it's deeper than that. In fact, Jesus chose to end this story with a question. When the Son of Man cometh, will he find faith on the earth? In other words, it's faith that drives us to persistent prayer. That God is looking. Will he find faith? Without faith, it's impossible to please God. With faith, all things are possible to them that believe. Faith is a magnet. It just draws God. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like what I'm going to say. You are not going to like it. I promise you, you're not going to like what I'm about to say. No, you're not. No, Brenda, Wendy, you're not going to like what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it, though. Here we go. God doesn't respond to needs. He responds to faith. Oh, my. Why did he isolate that one man at the pool of Bethesda? He sensed that man had faith to be made whole. Faith attracts God. Oh, yes, it does. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous. His ears are open to their cry. We are the righteousness of God. We are declared righteous in him. The psalmist goes on to say, the righteous cry, and the Lord heard him and delivered him out of all of his troubles. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. All. A-L-L, all. Delivers him out of them all. People of faith cry out to God. People of faith persist. People of faith hold on. People of faith draw God into a situation. You lay claim. You set your sights on something. You look at that mountain and say, God, you're gonna move this mountain. And that just prompts God's attention. Great is your faith. That widow in Luke 18 reveals that she wasn't going to give up. And you're not giving up. Intrigues God. And he responds to that. Why? Because when he sees faith in you, he recognizes that faith is so entwined with who he is and what he does. Through faith, he formed those worlds. He spoke worlds into existence. When he finds faith, when he sees faith, it resonates with God. It draws. He that cometh to God must believe that he is, and he's a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. I was digging around in research yesterday. There's a thought that has nagged me for years, and I knew where I'd heard it, but I couldn't find it, and so I had to wade through a bunch of stuff yesterday. The writings and the messages of R.W. Shambach. Now, how many of you remember Brother Shambach? Do you remember him? I don't know. Glenn, do you remember him? He's based in Tyler, Texas. I found what I was looking for, but I found something else. Shambach was an old tent revival preacher, had radio programs, TV programs, traveled the world preaching faith. Not the blab it and grab it, name it and claim it, sloppy agape kind of faith. No, he preached faith in a way that was pretty gritty. It drew the sick, the hungry, the desperate, and it was very demonstrative and combative in his preaching. He closed every broadcast. With this statement: you don't have any trouble. All you need is faith in God. Every broadcast. I happened across one of the messages yesterday where he explained that. He said, I've gotten more complaints for that saying than anything else. People would say, what do you mean I don't have any trouble? You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know where I'm going. One of the worst things you can ever say is, I understand what you're going through. Now, people don't believe that. They don't. Yeah. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Yeah, that's our attitude. But Shambach would say, you're only focused on the first part. Job said, man born of woman full of trouble. Of course, everybody's got trouble. This old preacher said something remarkable. It's how you face that trouble that will determine the outcome. If you can face your trouble with faith, God will deliver you. Some of you are in a mess right now. Yes. Kimmy, Barbara, Lupita, Ruth. Some of us are in a mess right now. I want to tell you the story that Shambach shared where he got this statement. He was preaching in Buffalo, New York. After service, the family invited the entire ministry team over to the house for dinner. It was very late. They lived in Niagara Falls, 30, 40 miles away from Buffalo, and got there at 1 a.m. Table was spread. Shambach said it made Belshazzar's feast look like a Girl Scout picnic. But the food was forgotten when the host told the story of how everything in his life was on an upward trajectory. There was simply no stopping him. Promotions, possessions, attainments, fame, acclaim. But he was struck with spinal meningitis, rheumatoid arthritis. Things in his body began to degenerate, became so severe, it threw him into a coma. The doctors called in the priest to give him last rites. And the man said, I knew the priest was there, and I knew what the priest was doing, but I couldn't respond. I couldn't even blink an eyelash. When that priest left, he said, I sensed when he left, and he said, I saw a man walk through a wall into my hospital room and whisper in my ear, you don't have any trouble. All you need is faith in God. And that man said, I am Jesus of Nazareth. And when I walk out of this room, you will awaken, you will get out of this bed, you will shave, you will clean up, you will put your clothes on, you will walk out of this hospital, you will find a Bible, you will find the book of John, you will read that book of John until you learn about me and find the path to eternal life. What was whispered in his ear? You don't have any trouble. All you need is faith in God. It's that faith that pleases God. Your faith is a magnet. So God doesn't respond to your whining and complaining and groaning. God does not respond to your gold-plated invitation to your pity party. Oh, Brother Gurley, that hurt. It did hurt, didn't it? But faith will invite God. Well, second thing, this is what I felt impressed early this morning. Faith draws God. Here's something else that draws God. I can't explain it. Sacrifice. Show me someone, anyone, anytime, anywhere, who gives of themselves, who parts company with their time, their talent, their treasure, and I will show you a person that is a God magnet. Oh my. I will show you a person that attracts the presence of God, because sacrifice goes contrary to the flesh. But when you make yourself a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, wow, you will please him. He's attracted to that. That's what gets his attention. He's not impressed with our degrees, our intellects, our IQ, no. But when you sacrifice, you skip ahead in Luke from chapter 18, where we see faith in a widow, to chapter 21. Jesus is watching people at give at a temple. If they gave up to a certain amount, they'd blast a trumpet. But he observed a widow who stepped forward and gave 2 mites. My desk, I've got 2 mites that are a couple thousand years old. They're worth 1/32 of a penny. They're worth about 20 minutes, the wages of a working man at her time, back in Luke. But more importantly, it wasn't just 20 minutes of a working man's time. It wasn't just 1/32 of a penny. She gave all she had. She didn't give from her abundance. She gave everything she had. And Jesus saw it. You want to attract the attention of God? Give sacrificially. Empty yourself. Read the Bible closely. And I challenge you. Show me any time that a person sincerely offered a sacrifice that heaven didn't come down. Yeah. It was the widow giving the cake formed from the last bit of meal and oil that got God's attention. It was that spotless lamb, those 2 turtle doves offered. That grain offering, that wave offering, that sweet smelling is something about sacrifice. When we go over and beyond, when we go the second mile, it attracts God. It drew him to Moriah's hill, where a new name was revealed for God. When Isaac was spared and Abraham was introduced to Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. It's why in the Old Testament, God had a reputation. He was called the God of the mountains, because the pagans saw that the Israelites went to the high places to offer sacrifice, build altars. He became the God of the mountains. God shows up in sacrifice. And of course, that passage in Luke 21 ends with the betrayal of Judas. After the woman gave 2 mites, gave all, we see Judas who refused to give all. One attracts God, the other repels God. All. You probably heard me say it. The word all is found in every chapter of the book of Acts. The word all is found more in the book of Acts than any other book in the New Testament, maybe even the Bible. It marked the early church, the willingness to give all. I'm glad we've got the one Lord, one faith, one man. I'm glad we got the new birth message. I'm glad we've got all of that. But we need the lifestyle of that first church. They worshiped him with all of their heart, all of their soul, all of their mind. Something about sacrifice attracts God. Yes. And of course, that's where Luke is headed in the gospel, because he's going to go to a mountain and show the one who gave all at Calvary's cross. Yes, that's what sacrifice does. You want to reach out and get a hold of the heavens? You want to be attractive to God? You want the divine magnet to be activated? Sacrifice. Cornelius, he comes to mind. Cornelius, you remember him. The Bible said that his prayers, his sacrifice was so great God said, wow, we're going to have to do something here. An angel comes down and says, Cornelius, here's where you need to send for this preacher in Joppa, and go ahead and send a messenger. I got work to do in Joppa on that preacher. And while Cornelius' messengers are hot-footing it to Joppa, God stages an intervention for a prejudiced, biased preacher on a rooftop in Joppa. He had to get the preacher ready. Had to get the preacher ready for the invitation was coming. Large sheep filled with unclean animals. Animals came down to Simon Peter in a vision, those unclean flying animals like bats and buzzards and crows and ostriches and pelicans and ravens, those unclean insects, pretty much all of them, except for certain locusts. And in my books, they're unclean too. Then those unclean land animals, those that don't split the hoof, the hyenas and the cats and the donkeys and the zebras and armadillos and all those unclean land animals, and all of this stuff was in this big canopy that came down to Simon Peter. And God said, I got to get you ready, preacher. Rise, kill, and eat. I can't do that, Lord. I can't do that. That's unclean. But what God calls clean, you cannot call unclean. And when he awakened to that revelation, the door was being knocked on by Cornelius. It was all because Cornelius sacrificed. That revelation came, heaven came down. How far will God go out of the ordinary to respond to someone who sacrifices? I'll tell you how far. He'll move heaven and earth. Faith draws God. Sacrifice is a magnet to God. One more. Quickly, let me hit this one last one. Helplessness. It attracts God. If a bruised reed, he will not break. If a smoking flax, he will not quench. God is drawn into helpless, not hopeless situations, helpless situations where people are broken, contrite, and say, I can't do this by myself. I need help. Helplessness attracts our God. The psalmist said he heals the broken in heart, and he bindeth up their wounds. The weaker and more helpless we are, the stronger God is drawn. In our weakness, we're made strong, and his grace is sufficient. Think about the many miracles done for the widows in the Bible. Jesus raised the son of the widow of Nain in Luke 6, raised him from the dead. It's the first illustration of resurrection power of Jesus and the harbinger of the great resurrection coming that concludes the gospel story. What about the widow who creditors had come and Elisha said, bring the vessels and bring them not a few? Helplessness attracts God's attention. When you read the story of the 11 widows in the Bible, you read them, you see how God provided for them, how he was drawn to them, the helplessness. But I got to mention, can I tell you one Bible story and one personal story, then I'm done? The Bible story. Oh, I like this. It's in the opening of Luke. Her name was Anna, means grace. She was a young girl when she was married. They were married for 7 years and her husband died. Luke tells us about her. She spent the overwhelming majority of her life without a husband, that she devoted herself to ministering before the Lord in the temple. She couldn't go into the inner court. She wasn't allowed. She stayed in the court of the women. Go no further. She never left the temple. She worshiped night and day, fasting and praying. She became known as a prophetess. Her walk with God impacted so many people. Yeah. Until that day, at 8 days of age, the baby Jesus meets this 84-year-old woman. And we find out this is what Anna had dreamed of, that she would see the Messiah before she died. Jesus comes to helpless ones. Yes, he does. He comes to helpless ones. Oh, I've got to hurry. Oh, my. To the bros, the bruised and the broken and the impoverished, hurting and the wounded. That's who Jesus comes to. Yeah. When we say, I need you, Lord, it's like a magnet. I need to close with a personal story, a story of a very foolish young pastor. God had to really straighten him. Of course, that was me. Many years ago, a woman in our church who had seen more than her share of sorrow experienced yet another sorrow. Yeah. Alone, defenseless, helpless. Her husband died. And Gloria, Bridget, Donna, it was bad. In the midst of it all, someone gave her a car. What a blessing. She decided to pay tithes on the value of that car. She asked me about it, and I tried to talk her out of it. She didn't have anything, folks. And I knew how desperate her situation, but she said, no, God has blessed me with this car, and I must pay tithes on this car. And somehow, I don't know how she did it, she mustered together 10% of the value of that car, brought her tithes to the Lord. Remember, it's faith, it's sacrifice, and it's helplessness. And this widow filled all three. God taught me as a young pastor a lesson I'll never forget. For while I was trying to convince her not to do it, I didn't realize God was drawn to her situation. It was not long later she came to me and said, Pastor, you're not going to believe it. Someone paid off the mortgage on my house. And God had to slap a young pastor around and said, see, I watch out for my people. Can I repeat what that man in the vision said that the Lord whispered in his ear? You don't have any trouble. All you need is faith in God. Oh my, well, I feel the Holy Ghost in this. Now you know why I'm just running around shouting all morning long, and I hope you are too. Would you share this with a 500,000 people? I may exaggerate. Go for 1 million. God bless you. Encourage somebody. You don't have any trouble. All you need is faith in God. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Morning Devotion with Ken Gurley. Join us next time for another inspiring devotion. To support this ministry, please visit firstchurch.com/give.